according to Conor Benn, I'm washed up and finished, but you know, there is a lot that I still have left in the tank, regardless of what people may think.
Chris Eubank Jr. has finally responded to Conor Benn's intense training footage, and the heat is officially on. Roy Jones Jr. isn't blind to Benn's raw power, but he believes Eubank holds the edge with size, experience, and ring IQ. Roy thinks Chris can outbox Benn in the early rounds, but he's clear. One slip-up, and Conor's power could change everything.
Very good fight. Conor has punching power chances. Chris is the bigger guy, so you give Chris the advantage going in because he's a bigger guy. But Conor does have exceptional punching power, so it's going to be a great fight. I think Chris should win the fight. I think Chris should outbox him, outsmart him, but he will have to be smart early because Conor.
This fight is chess with dynamite, Roy says. His advice to Benn: don't let added weight interfere with fundamentals. Moving up might give Conor more power, but if it comes at the cost of sharp technique, it could backfire. Promoter Frank Warren chimed in.
Take your fundamentals with you. You know what I'm saying? Because if you can't take your fundamentals, you can't go nowhere. If you can take your basic foundation and your basic fundamentals, it all stays the same. A little more weight just means a little bit more power. But if you don't take the fundamentals with you, a little more weight will mean a little less power. So I advise him to take his fundamentals with him.
With his take, emphasizing that the best fights aren't just about skill, they're about legacy and hype. That's what makes this one box office gold. Still, Warren admits he's not fully convinced Conor can handle the weight disadvantage. He's hopeful, but it's a tall order.
We all talk about the best fight and the best. That's not the best fight and the best, but it's a fight. There's a demand for it from the public because of their history. So that's why it's selling so well and doing so much business. How do I see it playing out? I don't know if Conor can give away the weight. I don't know. I hope.
Meanwhile, Dev Sani is paying close attention to the weigh-in. He believes Eubank Jr.'s biggest challenge could come before the first bell even rings, making weight and rehydrating properly. Dev sees Conor Benn as the smaller man, but one who brings ferocious aggression and knockout intent right out the gate. The key question: can Eubank weather the early storm and push the fight into deeper waters? Dev won't pick a winner, but
They look like at the weigh-in, and even then he's got to make a weight afterwards, doesn't he? He's got a rehydration thing. I think a lot of this feels like it depends on how comfortable Chris Eubank Jr. is at the weight that they're going to end up fighting at, and that's where it kind of lies for me. Conor Benn is smaller, but he's very, very aggressive, and he'll be looking to just try and knock out Eubank as quickly as possible. And I think it's about, can Eubank, does he have the energy resource to kind of weather the storm and see Benn in the second half of the fight? That's kind of where it lies for me. I don't know, but I'll be tuned in on
not missing this one. As for Eubank Jr., he's heard all the talk. At 35, critics say he's washed. He's having none of it. With new opportunities through Saudi Arabia's Riyadh season and strong support from major backers like Al Sheikh, Chris insists he's far from done. He sees this not as a swan song, but as a new chapter. In Chris Eubank Jr.'s eyes, the journey is far from over. In fact, it's just...
As in, have you got enough time to achieve what you want to achieve?
Absolutely. I'm 35 years old, and according to Conor Benn, I'm washed up and finished, but you know, there is a lot that I still have left in the tank, regardless of what people may think. And that, coupled with the opportunities that Riyadh season, Saudi, Turkey Al Sheikh are the opportunities that these outfits are giving to fighters now. Absolutely, I've got plenty of time to to continue on my own path.
Getting started. With fresh opportunities ahead and platforms like Saudi Arabia's Riyadh season backing him, Eubank sees this chapter as a major turning point. Carl Frampton, a respected voice in boxing, believes Eubank should consider moving up to 168 pounds, suggesting that making 160 is taking a...
The Eubank stay I think 160 is hurting him now. I would like to see him fight at 168. But the appeal of this fight is massive.
Oh,
it's something that I mean, it's even got my attention. Like, and I see myself as a boxing purist, but I can't wait. I can't wait for fight week. I think there's going to be chaos.
Yeah.
And then I can't wait.
Toll. While Frampton is a self-proclaimed boxing purist, he admits the hype surrounding Eubank versus. Conor Benn has him fired up. He's expecting chaos during fight week and is here for all of it. Troy Williamson, who has sparred with Eubank Jr., is backing him to win. As a fan, he's hyped for the fight, but points to Eubank's size, strength, and experience against tougher opposition as key advantages.
He's got the big fight with Conor Benn coming up. How do you think that's going to go?
I'm really excited as a fan, but if I was to pick a winner, I'd go with Eubank.
Why's that?
And I think he's been in with the better calibre of opponents. He's bigger, he's obviously stronger. I think Conor Benn's not the same fighter since he got caught with them performance enhancing drugs in his system. I don't think he's the same fighter. He hasn't got the same explosiveness, not completely out no more. So if you asked me last year, I would have probably went with Conor Benn. But obviously now, on a level playing field, got to go with Chris.
Williamson also notes that Conor Benn hasn't looked the same since the PED scandal, saying the explosiveness and knockout power just aren't what they used to be. A year ago, he might have picked Benn, but now that things are on a level playing field, he's all in on Eubank. Eubank Jr. has looked absolutely shredded in recent training footage, showing he's taken his preparation to another level. His focus on strength and endurance makes one thing clear: he's coming to dominate. Tiaran Bradley, who has sparred with both fighters, says this isn't just about size or speed. It's about who delivers when the pressure is on. While Eubank is the naturally bigger man, Benn's speed and power make him extremely dangerous. Bradley expects fireworks, but refuses to pick a winner, knowing anything can happen on fight night. Barry, a longtime fan, sees Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn as one of the biggest fights in UK boxing history, fueled by the personal rivalry rooted in their father's legacy.
But Conor has spite in his hands. He's quick. He's not boiling himself down. So you know what I mean. We could sit here and talk about all the points he's going to make for either fighter going to win the fight. But we are prize fighters at the end of the day. So who's going to show up on the night? And I think that's what it'll come down to.
You looking forward to being there for the fight? And do you have a prediction?
No prediction. I know both fighters, and I think both of them are going to show up on the night, and I think we're going to be in for an absolute treat. I think it really does display the power of the legacy build that Senior and Nigel Benn.
Legacy. He supports Benn, believing the young fighter's hunger and desire to prove himself will carry him through. Though Eubank has the size, Barry trusts Benn's power to make the difference. Harlem Eubank strongly backs Chris, citing his superior experience and the level of opponents he's faced. While
Go Barry, I want to ask you, but at the end of the month, obviously big fight, Eubank Jr. takes on Conor Benn, well talked about, well documented. Where are you on it?
I think it's going to be a massive fight. I think it's arguably one of the biggest fights ever to take place in England. The personalities, the backstory between the dads, everything works to make this humongous. We could have sold 500,000 tickets. I think I'm with Conor Benn on this. I think he's gone through more than enough in his life, which has now been completely exonerated. What a waste of 2 years of a young man's life. He's got a point to prove, but Eubank is the bigger man. So I see it as a 50-50 fight. And I believe that Conor Benn can knock out.
He acknowledges the weight factor. He believes Chris's boxing IQ puts him well above Benn. Izzy Ass echoes the sentiment. Despite Benn's determination, Chris's career accomplishments give him the edge in this tightly contested clash. Izzy believes Conor Benn's hunger to prove himself could give him a critical edge. He echoes Ricky Hatton's view that Benn's extra drive and determination may be the X factor in this heated.
I think Chris is, leaps and bounds ahead of Conor. You know, his experience, the guys he's been in with, you know, take away the weight, because, you know, Chris is obviously going to be disadvantaged in there with the weight as well. But just ability, you know, boxing skill set is on a completely different level.
Clash. While Izzy acknowledges Chris Eubank Jr.'s size advantage as a major factor, he's especially drawn to the authenticity of the rivalry. The tension feels real, and the build-up has created an electric atmosphere. However, Izzy is...
I really think it's close enough. I think Billy Joe beats them both. Not on the same night, but he beats them both. I really do, different level. I like Conor Benn. I know he come to our last York Road show, so on that basis, I think potentially got a bit more hunger. Potentially the one who's, like I said, Chris probably already kind of not made his mark in the game, but probably achieved a bit more than Conor Benn. I can feel like Conor, especially with the last couple of years he had, I feel like he's got a lot to prove. So maybe he has got more hunger. Maybe he's got more desire. Maybe he's got a bit more to prove. So Conor Benn probably has that little bit edge, and Ricky's probably got right to say that. But it's a close one. You know, size is going to play a big factor in it, and yeah, it's exciting. It's got a lot of history to it, a lot of rivalry. I think it's genuine rivalry and all. I don't think it's
also critical of some of the more controversial moments leading up to the fight, particularly the egg incident, which he feels crossed the line. Still, he believes the bout will draw massive attention, likely becoming a sellout, with all the ingredients of a historic showdown. Josh Kelly sees the upcoming fight as a pivotal moment in both fighters' careers. He questions whether Eubank, at this stage in his career, still has what it takes to handle Benn's youthful energy and pressure. At the same time,
the numbers done great, and the egg smashing in the face, which I didn't agree with, by the way. I think we're below the belt to use an object and smash it in anybody's face. It's not something I'd encourage as opposed to the fights, but it happens. He's done the numbers, and good luck to them both. But the show's going to be an absolute sellout. I'm sure he'll do big numbers online, but yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Kelly doubts whether Benn is truly prepared for a challenge of this magnitude, especially given his lack of experience against high-caliber opponents like Eubank. He's critical of Benn's tendency to call out fighters without following through, suggesting Benn is better at generating hype than proving himself in the ring. Despite those concerns, Kelly concedes that if Eubank has been affected by age or the demands of making weight...
Eubank's towards the end. Ben's obviously went through his stuff, so it's just a crossroads. It's just like, has Eubank got enough left in him to deal with someone who's going to be lots of energy, and is Ben is he really what he is? He hasn't really boxed at the calibre of Eubank. Yeah. So it's like, Ben's been calling me out for years. He's the best guy calling people out, not fighting them. I think he's called every person out on the face of the earth and never fucking fought them. And he's just waited out for this Eubank fight. Yeah. But it's fucking funny.
Ben could seize the opportunity. However, if Eubank is anywhere close to his peak form, it could be a rough night for Ben. For Kelly, the fight hinges on whether Eubank can overcome his physical challenges and whether Ben can rise to the moment, a true turning point for both men. Ricky Hatton, too, acknowledges that many fans are backing Eubank, and for good reason. Chris has battled top-tier opponents like Billy Joe Saunders at his natural weight, while Ben is moving up 2 divisions, facing his toughest test yet. But Hatton emphasizes that Conor's drive, mental toughness, and the same relentless will his father Nigel once showed could play a deciding role. He believes that if Ben can channel that fire effectively, he might just pull off the upset.